usually the case that when we have some people who are recording, then we need to make them to agree on making them the videos to put on. And let me know if you can share the screen and you're the presenter now. But of course, I will present you again. And feel free to unmute yourself. Yes. Yeah, wait, you need to unmute yourself. Again, this is weird in Microsoft Teams, but yeah, sometimes happens. Let's wait. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now you joined again.
Okay. Turn on
Yes.
the camera.
So you can.
Okay.
Yes, and you can try to share your screen, and I will present you, and then we can start the seminar, which is our 2024-2025 online seminar for works presentations on hypergraphs and network theory. And specifically today, I'm really happy to present you Pan, whom we were happy to meet at the East China University in Shanghai. And together with his colleague, right, and supervisor, Professor Zhu, he will present his work on the robustness of interdependent hypergraphs. So floor is yours. Thanks a lot for joining.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to be here today to have the opportunity to share my work on robustness in high-order networks and high-order interdependent networks. These concepts are important for understanding cascading failures and system risks in complex systems. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Lyubov, Professor Lyubov, to invite me for this talk. It's a privilege to be part of this session and to engage with such a distinguished audience. Before I start, I want to take a moment to explain the motivation behind our work. Our goal is to better describe and understand the object world around us. This work is inspired by real-world systems that we encounter in daily life. These include power grids, ecosystems, financial markets, and social networks. Each of these systems has unique features, like cascading failures, high-order interactions, and interdependencies that require specialized tools to model the study. With this understanding, let me now introduce the key concept that motivates this study. The first is that the cascading failure in the complex systems. I will start with this. In many systems, a small failure can spread to other parts, causing the entire system to collapse. For example, in a power grid, one station failing can overload others, leading to a blackout. Researchers use percolation theory to study this. It helps us to understand how the failures spread and measure a system's robustness. And then let's move to the higher-order networks. The higher-order interactions in complex systems. Many real-world systems involve interactions among multiple parts, not just pairwise interactions. For example, in ecosystems, a species might depend on several other for food or shelter. Similarly, in social networks, group dynamics often play a bigger role than individual connections. For example, in this behind, can you see the mouse? I'm not sure. Okay, there are three people here, and we cannot just we can not only interested in the other people, we can also interested in the relationships. So this, of course, is the higher order interactions. And then let's move to the interdependent networks. Many systems do not operate in isolation. They depend on each other to function. For example, in a power grid, may rely on the communication systems for coordinations. And but if the power grid fails, the communication systems might also stop working. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. To understand interdependent networks, let's look at the classical example from a 2010 Nature study, below here. In this example, we have two interdependent networks, A and B. Each node in network A depends on a corresponding node in network B to function, and vice versa. And now we can imagine that an attack occurs on a single node in network A. This failure causes its dependent node in network B to be failed as well, as it can no longer function without its counterpart. This failure in network B propagates back to network A and causing further failures. This process continues in a cascading manner until the network reaches a stable state or collapse entirely. And then our research focus is the robustness of higher-order networks and robustness of interdependent higher-order networks. To analyze the higher-order networks, we use the bipartite network representation, because the higher-order networks has the different models to model it. For example, the hypergraphs, simplicial complexes, and bipartite networks. Now, here we use the bipartite network is that we have some reasons for choosing the bipartite networks. For example, the generality. The bipartite network. The bipartite networks is more general and can capture the richer forms of higher-order interaction. For example, the relationships between nodes and hyperedges can be directed, which cannot easily described in the hypergraphs, and is often defined in the real-world systems. And the second is that the mediated interactions. Many higher-order interactions in real-world systems are mediated by some entity. For example, the neural networks to neurons might indirectly affect each other through the interaction of a common synapse or the intermediate neuron. Using bipartite networks make it easier to describe these kind of systems, and we could describe the dynamics of the synapse or some kind of a intermediates. And then when modeling the interdependent higher-order networks, the bipartite network representation treats nodes and hyperedges equally. This symmetry allows us to describe different types of interdependencies, such as the hyperedge interdependent with another hyperedge, or node interdependent with another hyperedge, and many kinds of interdependencies we could all describe with this only one model. And for example, by establishing interdependence between the bottom nodes or the with this kind of symmetries, we can only just put the degree distributions of top nodes or bottom nodes to the network and to model different types of the interdependencies. This makes the framework flexible and very easy to study the very general to study the complex systems. And the question is that we want to study the robustness, how to quantify the robustness of a higher-order network. The common way is to measure the size of the giant connected component size. We call the giant component. The giant component is the largest set of nodes that remain connected after some nodes or hyperedges fail. For example, if we randomly remove some hyperedges from the network, the giant component will shrink. And the robustness of the network can be understood by analyzing how the giant component behave as failures increase. And then we could use mathematical methods, equations to describe kind of robustness. For example, here we could write some equations. We can see the first equation that S top equals to 1 minus 1 minus S bottom prime to the kth, which means that if we randomly choose a node from the top nodes, if we randomly choose one, it belongs to the giant component. The probability that it belongs to the giant component equals to that at least one of its neighbored bottom nodes belong to the giant component, which means the S top means the randomly choose top nodes belong to the giant component, and the S bottom prime means the we from a top node finding bottom node and belongs to the giant component. This is the generative function, and with this logic, we could write down all the 4 equations to solve these systems, and then we want to study the statistical properties, because this is only a special case. We want to have some kind of statistical equations to capture the whole system's behavior without looking at exactly the nodes or edges information in detail. So we write down the another equations with degree distributions, and to achieve to solve these equations, we use the numerical solutions, numerical simulations on the equations, and we got the results. With the specific degree distributions, we could describe the a system's robustness from a statistical perspective. We let the something wrong with the computer. With the PK and PM, the degree distribution as the Poisson degree distributions, and we solve the equations and find that the size of the giant component as a function of the P top and P bottom. P top and P top means that we randomly remove a fraction, P top fraction of top nodes, and randomly remove P bottom fraction of bottom nodes. And we observe 2 important features. That the first is that the transition type is the continuous phase transition. The giant component continuously grows from 0. And then the curves for the size of giant component as the function of P top and P bottom overlap perfectly. The reason for this symmetry lies the bipartite representation of the networks. Top nodes and bottom nodes are treated equally in the mathematical formulation, and both contribute equally to the formation of the giant component. And so far we have discussed the robustness of high-order networks, but many real-world systems are not isolated. They depend on one another to function. And then we study the robustness of interdependent higher-order networks. And I will first introduce the mechanism of these dependencies. We can see 2 networks. The top one is the network A, the bottom one is network B. And we let the bottom nodes in network A depend on the bottom nodes in network B, and vice versa. To model this the interdependencies, we let the bottom nodes in network A can only function if its corresponding dependent node in network B is functional, and vice versa, which means that the bottom node in network B can only function if the corresponding dependent node in network A is functional. And then we could also write down the mathematical equations to describe this kind of a case, and we solve the coupled equations numerically that analyze the robustness of 2 interdependent bipartite networks. The numerical solutions reveal that the interdependent system undergoes a discontinuous phase transition. This means that the collapse of the giant connected component is abrupt, unlike the gradual transitions observed in the single networks. And then we are, as we have seen, a single high-order network undergoes a continuous phase transition during percolation, where the giant component gradually shrinks as node fails. And on the other hand, fully independent high-order networks exhibit a discontinuous phase transition, where the connected component collapses abruptly at the critical threshold. This difference in phase transition types raises an important question that what causes the transition from continuous to discontinuous? In other words, how does the systems evolve as we go from one layer to two layers? But when we think about this problem, there are some challenges. The challenge is that this model inherently deals with integers, either one layers or two layers, either one network or two networks. To explore the process in between, we needed to develop a framework that allows us to discover what happened. And this is where the partially interdependent networks come in. By introducing the dependency fraction Q here is the interdependence fraction, we can model the systems with the fractional levels of interdependencies, effectively bridging the gap between single layer and two layer networks. In this framework, that when Q equals to 0, the networks are completely independent, representing that one layer system. And when Q equals to 1, the networks are fully independent, representing two layer systems. And then we could also write down the equations and solve the equations through their numerical calculations. We observe that as Q increases, the type of phase transition in the system changes. For small q, the transition is continuous, as seen in single networks. However, as q becomes larger, the system undergoes a discontinuous phase transition characterized by fully interdependent networks. This discovery led us to identify the critical point where the phase transition type changes from continuous to discontinuous. We call this the trig critical point here, the Q star. I'm not sure whether you can see the mouse. We call this the trig critical point. The trig critical point is defined by the pair, the Q and the delta. Q is the fraction of interdependencies. The delta is the average degree of the top nodes and bottom nodes. We let the top nodes and bottom nodes have the same average degree. We call it data. We call it a delta. Sorry. By studying partially independent two-layer bipartite networks, we next extend our analysis to three-layer systems, which looks like this. And by introducing a third layer, we aim to explore how the addition of more interdependent networks affects the system's robustness and phase transition behavior. We discovered a new phenomenon as we at the third layer. The systems exhibits two-stage phase transitions in the certain parameter regimes. We can see the red curve is the continuous, and the black curve is the discontinuous, and the thick green one is the first discontinuous, and then first continuous and then discontinuous. We call it the two-stage phase transition. And I come to the end of this presentation. Let me summarize the key findings of that work and provide some closing remarks. First, we demonstrate that the single high-order networks exhibit this continuous phase transition where the giant component shrinks gradually as node or hyperedges fail. Secondly, further fully independent networks undergo discontinuous phase transitions characterized by an abrupt collapse of the giant component while failures reaching a critical threshold. And then we studied the partially interdependent networks and identified the concept of three critical points, which mark the transition from continuous to discontinuous phase transitions as the dependency fraction Q increases. And finally, in three-layer interdependent networks, we discover two-stage phase transitions where the giant component shrinks gradually at first, but then collapses abruptly. This reflects the complex interplay of interdependencies in multi-layer systems. And this work has been published in Physical Review Research, and the UI is shown here, the right one here. And thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you, and I would like to take any questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. You are so fast. You're always so fast, Pan, to to go. I think we can maybe go a little bit in the beginning where you were introducing the whole concept of the problem formulation, where you describe how you go from the hypergraphs into the bipartite networks, and where you basically one way, right, to look at this problem is always to represent this bipartite network modeling and representation of hypergraphs as bipartite networks. But you can also then define your robustness of hypergraphs depending on how you target, which nodes you target. So you target nodes which are not the white ones, right, but the blue ones. These are the first ones whom you want to destroy, right?
We don't have preference on the target nodes. We randomly remove the top nodes and bottom nodes.
But
randomly
when you
yeah,
because I just wonder why exactly the types of your phase transitions are happening. Is it attributed to the fact that you are removing of your removal kind of non-preferential removal or preferential removal? Because this is something that is known from network theory, that when you are targeting some very specific targeted nodes, like for example nodes of very specific degree or nodes of specific other centrality properties, then your transitions, the phase transitions that will happen, they will also be attributed to a very specific type. Like you will be faster to destroy a network if you target specific nodes, right? Like of specific property, right? And so here the question is the same if you tested that. If you tested kind of this removal of a specific targeted nodes, or not links, probably links you didn't consider here, but more actually specific nodes.
And here are some reasons that we didn't choose some specific nodes. And is that we want to focus more on the collective behavior of the system. If you can see this figure, we have P top and P bottom, which could be projected to the average degree. But if you if you choose to destroy some specific nodes, how can you project the P top and P bottom to the average degree? We first consider this simple cases, the random networks, Poisson distributions, as the degree distributions, and random. I know that if we have we want to focus more on the statistical properties. So we here choose the non-preference failures. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the if we choose some specific nodes to fail, what will it affect to the phase transition behavior? I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, hopefully, it may actually make it faster, right? To come faster, right? Because typically, if you target some specific nodes, then this targeting makes the whole system weaker in a way, right? If you target them, like this is the difference between targeted attacks versus non-targeted attacks. I mean, it's a hypothesis that we were testing on, not on the case of hypergraphs, but hypergraphs which are multi-layer. Of course, they are more robust, and maybe this is.
But what is the control parameter as you if you targeted the specific nodes? What is the control parameter?
Control parameter. You mean how would
The
you?
P top and P bottom.
Yeah, the as top or as bottom as an opportunity. I mean, as a possibility. I guess that there may be also other parameters, right? That one can control for. Like here, that would be kind of easier, maybe to say that we remove some. Only some proportion of that. But maybe there can be other kind of induced ones, for example, removing top nodes of specific degree and then top nodes of specific ordered right sequence. It's a kind of like differences between targeted versus non-targeted attacks. But I was just wondering, because you talked about, right, the phase transitions here and characterizing that. I mean, because you indeed explained how to assess, right, this probability of the destruction of the GCC, right? Because you can indeed, in the case of random attacks, it's very easy to write it down. Well, not easy, but you can write it down as you wrote here, right? Based on the probability P. P bottom or P top. But in case if it is targeted, then it's not as straightforward to write it down. So analytical solution or like analytical estimate becomes a bit more tricky to do. This is what I understand. But maybe somebody else has some other comments. I don't want to take all the time, but yeah, because I wanted you actually to go more into detail and explain how you were writing down these analytical expressions, just to explain to people the framework, because it's actually very nice. And maybe you could share the article itself. Feel free to share it in the chat or in as you prefer.
Finding the. We'll try to.
Yeah, if you can maybe go into the method that you used for estimation of the time for prediction for destruction of this giant component, connected component analysis.
I cannot. Sorry. Cannot add. Sorry, I cannot upload the file. I cannot upload the.
No problem. No problem. Well, or maybe I can try to search the name of the article and give it
the DOI
in the chat.
In the chat box. maybe you could copy that and paste it into the Safari or some kind of a note, upload the file.
Yes. Well, we can just forward it as a. You can forward it in the chat, the name of it, so that we could.
Okay. But I'm thinking about the targeted node failure.
Yeah.
It means that we have to look the detail about the nodes or the edges instead of capture the whole system's behavior. For example, if we randomly remove the nodes or edges, we don't have to care about the details